Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Baeza. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Human Resources with the Coast Community College District. And just in regards to the question that Aaron Thomas shared and asked, I guess I could just start off by saying I have been in education for about 26 years, and my career in education has just continuously evolved. As starting off as an educator, eventually entering administration. I've done several administrative jobs. I seem to always land in an area where I was constantly doing HR matters and handling different parts and processes and functions of the human resources department. And I eventually, went from several administrative positions into a director of HR position for a few years, and then eventually became assistant superintendent of human resources, and now I'm serving as the vice chancellor. HR is just, it's interesting because HR is one of those functions when you're looking at leadership. And, as leaders, we always think about all the different hats that leaders have to wear in their roles as administrator, whether you're in a dean position or whether you are a manager of a small business, or whether you are leading a department in a large organization. You have to keep in mind that all leaders wear different hats. They're supervising and supporting and managing the functions of that department that they oversee. But I think a hat that we all share in common as leaders is that we all wear the human resources hat. How do we support the organization, in the functions that we do in human resources? We're providing employees support when they're taking their leaves. We're providing them support in their constant professional growth and development as professionals. We're providing them support through the evaluation process. We're providing them support in, managing their way through the board policies or the policies of the organization, and all the benefits that they receive as employees of an organization. So something just to keep in mind is that no matter what role you're in as a leader, whether you're a dean like Aaron, whether you are a president of a community college like Dr. Rodriguez, or you're just a manager who's overseeing a division or a department, we all wear the HR hat because we all support our employees in many functions as it relates to them as being employees of an organization. So hopefully, Aaron, that kind of answers that question. I do have a small, short PowerPoint presentation. I don't know what the format of today's conversation is. I can kind of walk through the PowerPoint and share it with everybody, and then take some Q&A if that's comfortable.
I think that would be good. I would imagine that we have students in this breakout who are here because they'd like to understand what it means to have a degree with an emphasis in human resources. So hopefully you can talk through various functions. You've mentioned several of the functions in human resources, but if you can, if that's covered in your slideshow, that'd be super awesome.
Awesome.
And the other thing I think they might be curious about is your education, training, certifications, and whether or not you have those, or if you'd recommend things like SHRM certifications, et cetera.
Absolutely. So I could share, just with regards to my education, I have a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in history as well as literature. So my degree, my bachelor's degree is primarily in political science, political theory. My master's is in instructional leadership and curriculum development. And then I have several certificates in human resources. So I hold some specialty certificates in HR. I have completed all the SHRM requirements, as Aaron mentioned earlier. And then finally, I could just share that I have a doctorate degree in educational leadership in urban development I have a doctorate degree as an administrative leader in an organization, both higher ed and in the K-12 division. So sort of a diverse educational background. But I think part of the pieces that we have to keep in mind, it's our education. If you're really focused on being in the human resources area and developing a career in HR, absolutely having a degree to support that helps get your foot into the door. Mine was a little different because mine continuously evolved. Because I said that as administrators, as leaders, we're always wearing the HR hat. And, that seems to be an area that we're constantly providing individual support and understanding those functions. And that's how my career evolved in HR in an educational environment. It's just constantly, that's the area that I kind of moved over time. So I could just share my PowerPoint, kind of share a little bit about our organizational structure and the work that I do as the Vice Chancellor of Human Resources, and hopefully answer any questions that anybody might have. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull up my screen if I could. So let me just do this, take a couple of minutes and do this.
And I put a link into the chat about the SHRM or SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. This is the agency, the association, I should say, that provides certifications that are widely recognized. Probably some of the letters at the end of Dr. Baeza's name in his LinkedIn profile include those certifications.
And there's various organizations that provide leadership institutes for that are really focused on the HR functions, especially within the community college. So there's various organizations that really support the professional growth and development in that area. So there's ACRO, for example. There's an HR Leadership Academy, which I participated and received in some certifications through them. And there's various others that I participated in and learned and grown from. So the Coast Community College District Human Resources Department, we are a very large community college district. I believe we're the 7th largest in the state of California. We are a multi-college district. So there are single college districts and then there are multi-college districts. The Coast Community College has 3 community college, Coastline, and then there's Orange Coast as well as Golden West Community College. So we are 3 community colleges all in one, and the Human Resource Division provides support and oversees all of the human resource needs across the entire district. We have about 3,400 employees, so we are a very large employer in the Orange County community. So our services that we provide are quite diverse and unique in a way. So it's something to keep in mind when you're dealing with larger organizations. You're going to see that HR divisions tend to be more focused on specialty areas. So you have staff that focus on the hiring components. You have staff that focus on the benefits and the supporting the benefit programs. You'll have staff that specialize in different functions of HR, and I'll walk you through some of those pieces. And for those of you who are interested in HR, I think it's a great field because it's diverse and it provides a lot of opportunity in various areas based on the different functions of human resources. So something just to keep in mind that human resources is a very diverse area of opportunities for employees to consider in the future. So, our mission is always to serve a diverse the diverse educational needs, the global community. I think Aaron shared, earlier that it's interesting now that through the pandemic, we've all become so comfortable now with, using technology, especially Zoom, that this seems to be the new normal. This has really pushed many individuals to begin to conduct business, to begin to conduct our needs, whether it's learning needs and our educational needs, to do those all in an online environment. In fact, I think this is really going to be impacting HR and our business community from here forward. I really think it's projected and pushed us in a different area in moving us much more faster. We're probably going to see that there are going to be less people flying to, business meetings, having to attend conferences and fly off to the conferences. People are going to want to do more virtual conferences, virtual meetings, minimizing their need on transportation as well as travel. So I think it's, the Zoom environment has really impacted how we're going to be conducting business into the future and developing a much more national or international, broader community, as well as a worldwide community through Zoom. So it'll be interesting in the fields how you're going to how it's going to impact the careers choices that'll come forward in the future. Something to keep in mind, as well as something to consider is as we become so comfortable with utilizing Zoom and our technology, I think much of our functions are going to be technologically driven. So just to keep in mind, when things in the beginning of my career were handled by manpower, by individuals kind of overseeing different functions, we now have so much technology. There's software programs, there's database systems that really have helped us to kind of consolidate the functions and how we support large organizations like we do today. So technology is always a big piece of the work that you're going to do. So always remain on top of it. Always think about it, because it's going to be a big part of how you're going to conduct your work, as well as understanding how it supports the organization. You're going to be in a much more advanced era than I was as we've evolved into technology. But just to keep in mind, HR is to really support the organization. We're supporting a diverse educational needs across our community. We're trying to promote academic excellence, support our student success, making sure that we're hiring and supporting all of our employees based on their personnel needs. And there's our mission for HR. Our mission is always to make sure that we're strategic partners with the Board of Trustees and the Chancellor, as well as our constituents. We're here to support the colleges, the president of each college, as well as all the members within our organization. We're here to support them with all of their needs. So that's really the primary function of HR. I've always described HR as the heart and soul of an organization, that we set the tone of who we are, as well as providing a service-centered focus in supporting our organization.
Dr. Baeza, we're not seeing your slides move forward.
Oh, you're not?
No.
So did you just see me change the slide right now?
No, we're seeing the PowerPoint view rather than the presentation view.
Yeah, you're on the page edit. You're not sharing the PowerPoint screen.
Well,
wait, we're seeing your PowerPoint. It looks great. It's just you don't see it on the full screen.
Let's see. How's this? How's that now?
There we go.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know that. See, so you see now how technology is so advanced, and we have to be on top of it so that we can continue to work our way through this. So think of it from the district office. There's an executive team who support the entire organization and all of its needs. So we have the Board of Trustees at the very top. These are the elected officials. Their primary responsibility is to implement and support the policies of an organization, and the fiduciary, which is the financial responsibilities of an organization. And then underneath the Board of Trustees, we have the Chancellor. And then the Chancellor has his executive team. And his executive team is made up of myself, Vice Chancellor of HR, and there's a Vice Chancellor of Educational Services and a Vice Chancellor of Finance and Administrative Services. also think and realize that the finance and administrative services is a big component of business services from an organization. They oversee payroll, they oversee the fiscal, purchasing, and all those other departments, IT and technology. So they oversee a broad breadth of administrative functions and financial functions. It's a big piece of the business side of the world in education in a large organization like Coast. Also included in the executive team are the 3 presidents of the college. And all of these individuals make up the executive team of a community college, of the Coast Community College District. The Board of Trustees for the Coast Community College, we have 4 elected board members. They each serve 4-year terms. There's a student trustee, and those individuals, as I shared with you early, oversee the fiduciary fiscal stability of the organization and the policies of an organization. So here's some of their duties, their responsibilities, and I'll quickly oversee that. And then talking today a little more specifically about human resources, it's not just about managing. We have so many hats that we oversee in a large organization. We have oversight of all of our district employees. We oversee our benefits. We oversee the leave and vacation management, compensation, and employee labor groups. A big primary responsibility that I have is I'm the chief negotiator with 3 of our labor groups in our district. So we negotiate with our collective, related to our collective bargaining agreements with our unions. So we have a separate union for our faculty, a separate union for our classified staff, and then a separate union for our part-time faculty who are teaching less than 7.5 LHE of classes.
I'll ask if anybody in the room has any question about these functional areas within HR that you see on this slide. Some of these may be new to you. And I'll share that the collective bargaining activities done at our district aren't necessarily things you'd be dealing with in the private industry, as labor unions have declined in prominence significantly in our country over the last 50 years. Any questions about those functions of HR? Because you could specialize in any one of these is the reason.
Absolutely. Thank you, Erin. And I agree that, working with unions is definitely not within the private sector, but it's definitely a big part of larger organizations, especially in working in the public employment arena too, like we do. So here's a structure, and here's where to give you guys a little bit of ideas of the different functions of human resources. This is our organizational chart for the Human Resources Department. You can see I'm at the very top. I oversee that. Next to me is my executive assistant, my confidential. She supports me and much of the functions in HR in working on some of the administrative responsibilities within the Human Resources Division. Also next to me is Norlin. She is an HR business systems strategist, planning analyst. She does a lot of our work in overseeing some of our software programs, our systems, in managing and developing some of our technology needs, as well as developing systems to support the entire organization. So some of the things, and she also manages all of our data. So, all of our employee data, how many part-time faculty we have, how many full-time faculty, and their salaries and all those pieces of information. So think of HR as managing all of our data and personnel information across the entire district. She oversees those systems, and she also develops systems to support additional needs. So a lot of our transitioning from being a college that had primary presence on site and then having to transition to an online working remote environment, she supported a lot of that effort and making sure that the support was there in terms of providing the systems in HR to communicate with our employees in this transitioning process.
Dr. Baeza, I'm going to just do a time check. We've got
Sure.
about 5 minutes left. I don't know how many more slides you have, but we did have a question come in.
Absolutely.
How many more slides did you want to go through?
I think I have 2 left, but
Okay.
I could probably spend most of the last 3 minutes on this slide if that's okay with you, Erin.
Well, I think what we're trying to do is help our students understand all the different functions. And so the question that came in is, do you have to be specialized in one function, or can you be considered well-rounded by knowing all the different functions of HR?
That's a good question. And I could just share that you don't have to specialize in one function. I think one of the things you need to consider is that when you're working in HR, there's a lot of growth and opportunity. And the functions of HR are so diverse that individuals can progress and develop career paths and long-term career pathways to grow up in an organization. So you can start off as an HR analyst or an HR specialist. Those are the individuals that do the recruitment and the hiring. They do the onboarding components. They meet with new employees. They take all their information. They process that information, enter it into the system. They give you your new email account information and all that information. Those are the HR analysts and specialists that provide that support in the onboarding process. And then we have coordinators, and coordinators support the functions of the hiring, the recruitment efforts, posting positions, developing the committees to select and hire. And then we have 3 HR directors, 1 at each of the community colleges. They oversee a lot of the HR functions in a broader breadth. And then we have individuals who specialize in employee relations, and those would be with investigations, with some of our HR litigation and compliance measures. And we have a compliance specialist. And then we also have individuals who kind of oversee the interactives, providing our employees the accommodations that they may need because of their medical needs or disabilities that they may have. And then we have the entire benefits division, and that's a pretty diverse department over there. But something to keep in mind, you don't have to specialize in a degree that kind of gets your foot into the door. HR in large organizations like ours is so broad and so diverse that you can grow you can come in an entry-level position, and then you can begin to grow in an organization and really develop sort of a career pathway for a long career in HR.
And I think to also answer Nika's question, it goes a little bit to the size of the organization. So you can see that this is the team needed to support an organization that's 3,400 employees strong. If you wanted to be a generalist, I can tell you there are many small businesses who would greatly benefit from having an HR person that knows the law, knows all of these areas pretty well, and can help that small business navigate, especially a small business that's growing. And so you would have an opportunity in that kind of an environment to dabble in all of these areas. So there's room for both career paths, specialization as well as generalists.
Absolutely.
I know, Dr. Baeza, you mentioned SHRM. They do have a student chapter that students typically can join for little to no cost that you can get involved with, students can get involved with. And I know that was very helpful, at least when I was in my master's, to be a part of that for over like a year and a half.
We've got 2 minutes left.
So how about I just take some Q&A at this time if there's an opportunity, but just to keep in mind, as Erin shared, is in smaller organizations, you're going to find that there's individuals who kind of oversee multiple functions of an HR department. In larger divisions, you're going to find specialists who have niche kind of positions and deal with just one function of the HR responsibilities. And you can see from this organizational chart, HR functions are quite broad, and they're all driven and by law. So there's either, in the California Community College system, there's the educational code system that kind of drives much of our decisions and the decisions we make in HR. And then there's the government code that drives a lot of our decisions. And then there's board policy and process that drive how we make our decisions and the procedures that we follow. So just keep in mind that HR is a very heavy legal process, and that would be the same as in an educational setting or a K-12 community college or university setting, as well as working in the private sector. Because working in the private sector requires that you follow processes and procedures and requirements across the board.
I put the link to obtain an SHRM student or SHRM student membership in the chat. It's about $50 a year. I do want to share, because you may not be aware, that joining those kinds of organizations create all sorts of networking opportunities. You have access to papers, research information, jobs. So I encourage all students to join an organization that's relevant to their subject area. We have 10 seconds left. I really want to thank Dr. Baeza for making time to share with us this morning all of how he runs his organization and all the opportunities in HR. Thank you very much.